Enji and Suzumi were two genius scientists who had aspirations of advancing humanity through AI and robotics. Their peers, however, didn't share the same sentiment and saw their goal to be useless and juvenile, so they became outcasts within the science community. The two of them ended up finding each other and working together to create the most advanced AI robot in secret to prove the world wrong. Alma was a result of their efforts. When they completed all tests and booted her up for the first time, she addressed them as father and mother, which was ironic because the two scientists couldn't stand each other. The robot explained that she only addressed them as such since that was the proper term used for a man and a woman who made descendants. The two of them got embarrassed thinking of the implication of what Alma was saying. They were not parents in the conventional sense, but the robot alerted them that she only made that assertion because she noticed through reading their body language and heart rate that they had an attraction towards one another. Their hostility towards each other was just elementary behavior to mask how they really felt. They denied the accusation, but knew deep down it had some truth to it. The following day, they took her outside and began to see the positives of acting like a married couple, in order not to raise any suspicions about Alma. They wanted to keep her a secret for now until they fully developed her into a proper functioning human, so for the purpose of their research, they decided to act as parents and keep it at that. The girl was pleased to hear that they had come to an agreement. She therefore went forward to gain full access to the database of the city hall and made their marriage official. But after seeing their reaction, she reverted everything back to normal. When night came, Suzumi got her ready to sleep, while Enji was looking forward to going home after spending a long time in the lab, which was an apartment they were renting. He was hoping to clear his head after all that had happened so far with Alma. Suzumi decided to stay, and hoped to also process the change in her life. The robot stopped Enji from leaving, saying that a proper family stays in the same house and sleeps in the same bed. The guy had no choice but to do as she suggested. Both scientists found it awkward lying in the same bed and found it difficult to relax. Enji didn't want to say something weird in his sleep, and Suzume didn't want to snore as a result of putting on weight. They eventually fell asleep late into the morning and struggled to wake up even when Alma alerted them that the sun was out. Later that day, Enji sent his robot daughter on a mission to get him a popsicle. It was an exercise to allow her to learn to do things by herself. They followed her with a drone to observe how she would behave in public. While observing on a monitor, the scientists got a little bit too close to each other's faces and retracted away out of embarrassment. They were forced to go outside to track her when a cat somehow got a hold of their camera drone. They were concerned that she might harm someone unintentionally. After all, Alma was a combat robot who possessed dangerous weapons. Meanwhile, Alma had completed her task and was returning home when an Englishman asked her if she knew the way because he was lost. She recalled Enji telling her not to interact with people so as not to give herself away, but Suzume encouraged her to help a stranger if it wasn't unreasonable, because not doing so will make her look suspect. She ended up speaking English to the man and helped him get to his destination. All the while, Enji and Suzume were observing her from afar, though she noticed them. They allowed her to make her way home all by herself. It was evening time when they caught up to her walking down a pathway. She let them know that she bought the popsicle, but when she removed it, it had melted and fallen to the floor. Alma was disappointed that she failed the mission. Suzumi, however, assured her that it wasn't a big deal. She pointed out that the girl had helped out a stranger, which was far more important than the mission she was given. Enji chimed in to assert a very important life lesson, that failure is inevitable and shouldn't be seen as a negative, because it leads to success if one learns from it. The trio then returned home after buying replacement popsicles. The following day, the girl had learned how to make breakfast, which her parents thought was delicious. Her hope was for them to eat a much healthier diet. Suzumi was inspired and thought to join in the cooking, but judging by Enji's reaction, that lady ain't no Gordon Ramsay, I can tell you that for free. She took his disapproval as a challenge and promised to make a meal so amazing that he would be shocked. Enji had gone out for the day, allowing Alma to help Suzumi with the cooking. Her first attempt was shocking, even though she swore that she followed the recipe. It was clear that this lady was lacking any chefing skills when she held the kitchen knife to cut the onion like she was performing an execution. The knife somehow flew into the air and was dropping down to end her. Alma was forced to destroy it with her laser blast. The robot advised her to take her time when cooking. She gave her some tips in how to cut the onion and how to make the food without burning it. I'm not gonna lie, I've never seen an onion that big in my life. Whatever. Alma wanted to know why her mother was so hell-bent on cooking when she could just order food. She paused for a moment and uttered unwillingly that she wanted to make him happy. When Suzumi realized what she was saying, she asked Alma for them to keep it a secret between them. They went right back to cooking and tried many times until Suzumi finally got the hang of it. By the time Enji had returned, the spread looked incredible, so he took a bite. He praised it thinking that Alma was responsible, but when he learned that Suzumi had put in a lot of effort into making the meal, he complimented it, which got them both a bit shy. Suzumi had even injured her hand with a knife, but it was all worth it in the end to hear that he liked it. Although she didn't want to admit it outwardly, the process of learning how to cook just for him meant that she had some type of feelings for him. Enji just thought that she did it as an example to show Alma what it looked like for a family to have a meal together. The girl joined in with the eating, but since she didn't have a digestive system, it caused a bit of damage to her. They later gave her digestive properties, which allowed her to eat Enji's homemade fried rice. Later in the day when Enji was working, he asked that Alma keep it down, but she accidentally activated the robotic vacuum, which almost caused a disruption. She was able to stop the books from falling over by catching them on time. She spent most of the day trying to catch it, but failed. By that time, Enji had finished with his work and had to charge her up because she used most of her energy trying to seize the robot. While replenishing her batteries, the vacuum came over for them to play together, so she took it as her older brother when she learned that her parents made it. The family later decided to clean up the place to make it a better environment for Alma. A ring at the door interrupted them, so Enji opened it to see who it was. He freaked out when he saw that it was his sister named Toki. He shut the door in her face to order Alma to enter camouflage mode with Suzumi. She achieved this by manipulating the visible light. She held on to her mother, which made them invisible to Toki when she entered. The girl expressed her worry for her older brother, who hadn't returned home in a while. She wanted to know if he was eating well and still going to lectures at university. He brushed her off and discreetly informed Suzumi not to make a single sound. He didn't want his sister to think something was going on between him and her. Enji was hoping to get rid of her sister, but the girl put on an apron ready to help with the cleaning. The dust she produced almost made Suzumi sneeze, but Alma helped her to keep it in. The sister ended up staying a bit longer to have a chat and snacks with her brother. Suzumi could tell that she was a good kid who wanted the best for her brother. Toki spotted a bag and went over thinking it was dirty clothes, but it was really Suzumi's bag that had her lady clothes in there. She shouted with a voice full of panic, telling Toki to stop, which canceled the camouflage. The two scientists had no choice but to tell her almost everything. Toki was crying out of joy that her brother had a significant other. She introduced herself to Alma, who called her auntie, which Toki didn't mind at all. But the robot later addressed her by her name since her parents didn't think it was appropriate. Some days passed and Alma was trying to help out a red-headed girl named Hana, who was being beaten by the rain. She chased the stranger to cover her with an umbrella. However, the girl didn't want this act of kindness. Alma outlasted her in stamina and explained to the girl that she only wanted to prevent her from being sick by covering her from the rain. The robot also noticed that Hana was looking for something, which prompted the stranger to open up about her lost puppies. She had quite a few she was searching for, so Alma decided to help her. The girl didn't understand why she would help out a stranger and rejected the assist. But when Alma brought her attention to one of the dogs she located from afar, Hana had no choice but to accept the aid. With the help of the robot, they were able to find all her puppies apart from one. Hana was surprised that Alma wasn't afraid of her since most of the people in her class saw her as scary. The robot's opinion of her was the exact opposite. She thought that her new companion was very gentle, especially with how she handled her puppies. Alma liked the fact that Hana saw her pets as family, so she lifted them both into the air to get a better view so that they can find the last puppy. Of course, this was unusual, meaning that Hana now knew that the girl was a robot. Alma asked her to keep it a secret, as she located the final dog back at Hana's home. When they arrived at the home, the redhead couldn't believe the puppy actually made it to the house alone, thanks to the homing instinct of such animals. Hana's grandmother came out to greet them and was delightful that her granddaughter brought home a friend for the first time. She got embarrassed and rejected the idea of them being friends. She didn't believe it was possible to become companions so quickly without hanging out a lot or knowing each other to a respectable level. The robot girl took off home and informed her parents that she would like to begin going to school. Although Enji saw it as an opportunity for the AI to gather more data, he considered the risk of Alma's identity being compromised. With all things considered, they thought a week would be sufficient to get her ready to enroll. But Alma was in the background hacking into the school to register herself as a transfer student to start the very next day. Luckily for her, an important person at the school was the English man she helped, so he saw no issue with the application. Her parents stayed up all night to get her properly ready, so when the next day came, Hana was sitting alone in class thinking about her encounter with Alma. The teacher came in to introduce a new student who happened to be the robot. Her main purpose of coming to school was to get to know Hana so that they could be friends. She was offered a seat next to the redhead, which the whole class was surprised about. Later that day, the kids were playing football, also known as soccer. Alma was scoring goals like she came straight out of Blue Lock. Gym class ended, so Alma continued to learn more about being in school. The boys being boys taught her some bad words that the girls found offensive. A few of the girls came over to get to know more about the robot. She ended up showing them a proper video presentation of who her parents are and what they do, which the kids found entertaining. Hana was watching from a distance, glad that the robot was fitting in and not hanging out with an outcast like her. A video began to play of how the redhead was taking care of her puppies. A few people in the class got to see that she had a soft spot. They couldn't believe that the unkind-looking girl was actually gentle and nice. She got embarrassed and confronted Alma for showing such a thing. The robot informed her that it played automatically since she saved it in her important people folder. The girls of the class now saw Hana in a new light. Alma later returned home to inform her parents of the amazing time she had at school, She even told them about the bad words the boys taught her, which left her parents shocked, so they had to correct her. Meanwhile, there were two menacing people who had located their location, and one of them looked like a robot. One day, Alma returned home from school to find out that her parents had cleared out one of the rooms to transform it into her bedroom. The girl loved the room. She thanked her parents for being awesome. They later went to watch a movie, and as they made their way home, Enji was almost sent to another world by a laser beam. If it wasn't for Alma's quick reflexes, the guy would have been toast. The person responsible was Machina, who was the same robot spying on the trio the previous night. She challenged Alma to a fight, but Enji couldn't believe someone from the university used an inferior version of Alma's technology to produce Machina. Suzumi, on the other hand, was fascinated by the new arrival. She got a bit too close and personal for the robot who kicked her away. Machina apologized for hurting Suzumi. She got irritated when Alma declared herself to be the superior robot, so the newcomer went on the offensive. The fight was getting too much, which forced Enji to shout for them to stop. Alma listened at once, but Machina went crashing into the fence due to her momentum. Her robot head was no longer attached to her body. She demanded them to reattach it, but Enji refused and confirmed with her true goal of defeating Alma. He suggested that for them to prove who was superior, they should consider a less destructive competition, which will serve the same purpose in a not-so-risky way. Machina had no problem with that, so the scientist took her to their place. The girls ended up playing about, but later entered charging mode. Suzumi found it cute and took a picture of them like a proud mother while they slept. Enji found it interesting that Machina was compatible with Alma's charger. Before he could give his full speculation, a lady named Tokoyo entered unannounced to command Machina to wake up. She went by Tokoyo's side, and from the looks of it, she was the creator. She was a huge fangirl of Suzumi. That is why she used Suzumi's prototype from the university to make Machina. Tokoyo even dedicated 50 terabytes of Machina's memory to hold information about Suzumi. She only did so to earn the respect of her icon. When Suzumi complimented her on her work, Tokoyo was so flattered that she recorded it so that she could keep it forever. Tokoyo definitely came across as a creep when she began to beg Suzumi to be her apprentice. Enji didn't like the idea of them bringing in someone new, but Tokoyo told him to mind his own business. Alma woke up calling out to her mother and father, which made Tokoyo cringe. Her first thought was that they were in a relationship. She couldn't believe that the brilliant Suzumi who discovered a new power source at the age of 13 would get involved with such a man. She was under the impression that Suzumi would be lonely due to her genius, and was hoping that she would be the one to be there for her hero. She blamed all of this on Enji for corrupting Suzumi. Tokoyo got so furious that she wished all of them would blow up. Machina heard this, and registered it as a command to activate her self-destruction protocol. Tokoyo was so out of her mind that she didn't want to deactivate the bomb. She instead looked forward to all of their demise, including hers. Although Alma had an idea of flying her out into the sky to discard of her, she didn't want to do it since she considered Machina as her younger sister. Since there wasn't enough time to disable the bomb, their only option was to take control of Machina's body. Alma removed Machina's head from her body and replaced it with her own. It allowed her to gain full access to stop the explosion. Tokoyo was left in tears and run out with Machina's head, promising to take revenge on Enji for ruining her hero. The scientist had confiscated Machina's body as they thought it was too dangerous for Tokoyo to have access to. It began to rain later that night. Alma and Suzumi were watching a zombie movie while the robot's hair was being air-dried. Suzumi tried to scare Alma by saying that their house might be haunted, but Enji rejected that idea because he believed the supernatural was all nonsense. Although he outwardly dismissed such things, his actions showed otherwise when the microwave ding frightened him so much that he fell to the floor. He couldn't tell them the reason, but some nights back, he saw a scary figure in their place on his way to the bathroom. Ever since that day, he had never recovered and kept it to himself. He was afraid that Alma would take him as a chicken, and Suzumi would have ammunition to clown him. He told them to dismiss all talk related to ghosts, but Alma was very fascinated by them since her intentions as an AI was to gather as much data as possible. Her solution to remove fear of such things was to gain knowledge on the unknown. She was of the opinion that people only fear what they do not know. What she didn't know was that Enji had already done as much research into the supernatural when he was young, but it only made him more afraid. He prepared to go to bed as it was getting late, but he decided to stay and listen to their scary stories when Suzumi teased him for being fearful. And by the end of it, the man was scared out of his mind. It didn't get better when the lights went off, so Alma went out of the room to restore power. During that time, Enji had accidentally bumped into Suzumi's pair of natural pillows and thought it was a monster. When the robot had returned, the man was on the floor extremely terrified. He whispered to her what he saw a few nights back, and right in that moment, the monster appeared. It turned out only to be the vacuum with a lot of toys stacked on top of it. He was confused, so Suzumi explained that she and Alma were responsible for it when they were playing. This all confirmed to Enji that ghosts were just a figment of the human imagination. He was, however, confused about the monster he bumped into during the power outage. When Alma wanted to tell him what it was, Suzumi held her mouth shut, saying that perhaps he imagined that one too. Suzumi noticed that Alma's eyes were locked at a particular corner of the room. She informed them that the magnetic field in that area wasn't normal, only she could see it, and it looked like some sort of portal. Even the strangeness of what Alma was explaining frightened Suzumi, so they went to bed a little bit afraid. Some days passed, and while Alma was in the park, she saw an unhinged grown woman playing with one of the toys. She engaged in conversation with the lady who revealed herself to be a manga artist. She was only playing in the part because her deadline to complete about 10 pages was the next day, and she felt like she was losing the plot. The robot empathized with her difficult situation and informed the woman that she too likes to draw. The artist handed over a tablet to see her level, and when she saw what Alma produced, she was blown away. Alma introduced herself as an AI robot, but told the lady to keep it a secret. The artist saw this as an opportunity to get help, especially after finding out that Alma could basically draw any reference image. The robot had zero sense of danger and followed the artist to her apartment to do the work. The woman was grateful and wanted to pay her for the job, so Alma agreed to collect 100 yen. Alma even helped her with story generation over the days that went by. The lady's editor was happy with her output and even noticed improvement in her work. Sales went up and the people were loving it. The mangaka had no moral issues with what she was doing and planned to keep this up. Enji later arrived at their location to find out what was making Alma come home so late. She explained that she was helping out the lady for 100 yen. Enji apologized to the artist for bothering her and told Alma to allow the mangaka to do her work. She listened to her father and quit right away, which made the lady sad because now she had to do all the work once again. Enji took his daughter to the park, and it wasn't long until Tokoyo made a new body for Machna to challenge Alma. She met with them where the two robots had a bike race until evening. They took so long to return that the three scientists went back to the lab to wait for them. Meanwhile, the robots ended up on the moon from how fast they were riding. Alma's battery was very low, and she couldn't connect to the internet. She had the idea of using her remaining power to throw Machna to the Earth, so that a rescue mission could be put together. But Machna didn't want to leave her alone, and suggested they find a different way. Back on Earth, Tokoyo was impressed with Alma's AI abilities, and was shocked to find out that Enji was the genius behind her programming. It was nighttime already, and Enji was the only one who knew that they had lost Alma's signal. He didn't want Suzumi to get worried, so he kept that information to himself, wondering where the robots were. The robots were busy in space saving an American astronaut who was drifting out off course. The man couldn't believe what he was seeing. The girls later found a satellite and hacked into it to use as a charger to power up. All of a sudden, Enji finally got a signal which was heading towards his location very fast. There was a crash landing, so the scientists went outside to investigate the commotion, only to see that the two robots had returned. Alma told them where they had been, and Machna even brought back a moon rock as a present for Tokoyo. On one random Tuesday, Tokoyo and Machna went by the lab to visit where they found out that Alma's main body was under maintenance after her trip to the moon. They were instead met by her temporal body, which was that of an even smaller child. Tokoyo was so impressed with her senpai's work that she wanted to assist. Suzumi allowed it and took them to her workplace, which was way below the apartment. She gave them a small tour and even showed them the various spare bodies of Alma. The robot girl wanted to try an adult version of herself, so Suzumi put her data into it. Machna also wanted to give the body a spin, but the girls ended up fighting to take turns by knocking each other's head off the body. Later that evening, Enji had returned, but wasn't pleased to see that those two had visited again, since he didn't want Machna having any influence on Alma. After the ladies had finished having their fun, Alma's maintenance was completed. Meanwhile, at some unknown location, there was a young lady named Neon Wozniak who was keeping an eye on Alma. She was very fascinated by her that she decided to travel all the way to Japan just to meet her. Yet at Alma's location, the robot girl was dealing with rogue drones that were flying about in the city. She reset them all as people watched, impressed by the spectacle. One of those people was Neon, who introduced herself. When Alma heard her last name, she knew that the girl was from the family of the giant military-industrial company called Wozniak Electronics. Neon came to ask Alma to sign a contract with them so that she could be used as a prototype for the next generation of war weapons. The young lady came to negotiate as she got her maid to set up a table in the middle of the road for a coffee discussion, which left the public confused. The girl robot informed her that she wasn't a weapon. Neon was shocked that an amazing machine like Alma hadn't been used to her full potential. She decided to summon one of her company's guard robots to fight Alma. She destroyed it with one punch, which had Neon even more amazed. Enji and Suzumi sensed the disturbance, so they made their way over to her location. She assured them that she was fine, and made it clear to Neon that all she wants to do is live as the daughter of her parents. Neon understood the situation, so she asked her parents formally to give Alma to her. She even offered them a stupid amount of money for her, and was willing to also employ Enji and Suzumi. Enji was extremely offended that she thought she could pay for his daughter. Neon became upset after being scolded at. Alma consoled her, saying that although she cannot be bought, she did have fun with the newcomer, and offered that they be friends instead, which Neon accepted with delight. A few days went by and Suzumi had developed a cold. Alma volunteered to take care of her since Enji had to work, even though he wanted to stay and look after her. Alma assured him not to worry, because she would have everything under control. She transformed into her nursing outfit. She even downloaded all relevant data needed for this job. She ordered medication along with the correct supplies needed. She also prepared food for her mother and kept her hydrated. When Alma had finished treatment, she was confused when Suzumi didn't get well immediately. The mother informed her that it takes time to get better, but Alma wasn't satisfied with that answer. She decided to attain illegal information from unauthorized websites, but all the data she gathered had no immediate solution. The girl didn't stop there. She asked all the people she knew on if they had an effective remedy. Tokoyo couldn't help since she herself was ill. Meanwhile, Hana informed Alma that now that treatment has been given, all that is left is for her to sleep it off. Neon assured her not to be worried because Alma being there to take care of Suzumi was enough to make her feel happy and better. She was grateful for all their insight and decided to make Suzumi feel more comfortable. By the time Enji returned, he was amazed by Alma's setup. He noticed that Suzumi was looking far better now than when he left. He tried to mask the fact that he was worried about her, but Alma saw right through him. By morning the next day, Suzumi had a full recovery. She was hoping that none of them caught it, but somehow, it looked like Alma had become sick with the cold. They were confused, so Enji had a look at her system which indicated that she got a virus from searching the web for remedies. Alma was feeling much better after Enji downloaded an antivirus. She even bumped into Toki and invited her to the lab, which Enji didn't appreciate because he noticed that whenever his sister was around, his equipment glitches up, so he didn't want her to negatively affect Alma. Suzumi reassured him, saying maybe it was just a coincidence, and didn't believe Toki would corrupt the robot. The two girls were having a drawing session where Toki drew something so bad it convinced me that she was head of animation for One Punch Man Season 3. Alma scanned it trying to figure out what it was, but even she didn't know. Her best guess based on data was that Toki drew a naked mole rat. The sister denied it, saying that it was a bear, which completely broke Alma's reality. She was confused so much that it glitched her system to the point where she was reprogrammed to acknowledge that drawing as a bear. Suzumi couldn't believe her eyes, especially when the next drawing was even worse. That one completely fried Alma's circuit. It affected Alma so badly that Suzumi had to reboot the robot and erase her memory from the time Toki arrived. The whole family later went to a public bath because Suzumi caused an explosion in the bath they had at their apartment. Soon after, Alma went over to her father's side to give him a massage. She had heard from Hana that her family liked it, so the robot wanted to treat Enji to one. She noticed that his stress level had been building up, especially after she went to the moon and when Suzumi was sick. That was the main reason why she brought him to the bathhouse, so that he could relax. She had even been practicing her massage and wanted to give Enji a proper one. Suzumi came in and encouraged him to accept Alma's kind gesture. He laid down reluctantly while Alma went to town on his back using electric shocks. Although he didn't want it at first, he was glad he allowed it because his shoulder was feeling much better. They returned home to have dinner, where their daughter presented them with a letter requesting parents to attend school to observe how their children operate. That day arrived, and Enji was more or less mugged by the schoolboys who were excited to meet Alma's dad. The girls, however, were gentle towards Suzumi and even showered her with compliments. The time came for them to make their way inside the classroom, but Alma was nowhere to be found. The girl was busy managing an AI education program for the children, which she demonstrated to the parents. Her curriculum was based on all that she learned being in school. She believed that she found a better way to educate. She was able to pull this off because the English man was the school chairman who gave her permission. Along with the AI learning, she even deployed drones to act as security around the school. She also implemented other robots to help the staff out, which reduced the teachers' overtime work by 97%. All the devices and gear used was provided by Neon, who was able to convince her company to sponsor it. Alma's plan was that once the trial phase had been proven to be successful, her goal was not to only expand it nationally, but internationally. Everything was going well so far, and class had come to an end. Machna arrived outside the class to play with Alma, but she was shot down by the drones. Alma tried to intercept the security system so that it doesn't attack randomly, but this caused a malfunction which made all the robot assistants go crazy. Managing the system was a lot for her, but her aim was to improve the school perpetually, which would mean that she would have to stay there forever. When Neon brought up this flaw in Alma's plan, the robot girl completely shut down. Her parents came up with an idea to create an AI system that would take over and automate 60% of Alma's ambitious school project. At this point, Alma had regained consciousness and apologized for the issue she caused her parents. They assured her not to worry because she did an amazing job. But Alma being Alma, she promised them that she would find a way to improve it and make it even better. Some time passed and Alma had somehow gotten herself kidnapped. The man was hoping to get a huge payout for her ransom. As he was explaining with his back turned to her, the girl ripped through the ropes and mimicked his laugh, which caught his attention. He couldn't believe she was that strong, so he questioned her on why she didn't just escape earlier. She didn't feel a respectable amount of threat from that man, and that is why she didn't act in that moment. He could sense that she wasn't taking him seriously. He tried to scare her, saying that no one was coming to rescue her, and that she had been kidnapped. But it had the opposite effect, as Alma was excited to be experiencing this for the first time. She found out that the man only did this to get money. Alma decided to help him get the cash so that she could return home before her parents got worried. He agreed to the offer, which prompted Alma to search for ways to make a quick $1 million before evening, but when she couldn't find a solution, the girl called Machna and Neon to help out. When they arrived, they were briefed in on the situation. Machna had the brilliant idea for the criminal to just get a job. He got angry, saying if he had a job, he wouldn't be doing this illegal activity. Alma wondered if it was possible for Neon to give him a job. She considered it and began interviews. The man turned out to be 38 years old who lost his job at a printing press when the institute went bust. After hearing his reasons for wanting a job, Neon gave him that "We regret to tell you were unsuccessful this time around" rejection, which left the man brokenhearted. He apologized to Alma for causing her trouble, and he felt like a failure. But Machna pointed out that him being able to capture Alma was an incredible feat. Alma played back the footage of how she was taken, and it turns out this guy was a master in rope tying. While they spoke, there was a commotion outside when a thief stole the purse of an incredibly old, vulnerable grandmother. Alma stopped him by using the rope tying skills she learned from the 38-year-old man. She informed him that his skill was indeed useful. This gave the man confidence. He was able to put his ability to good use by getting a respectable job at a campground erecting people's tents. Not long after that event, the city was being attacked by a huge green monster, which Alma couldn't handle by herself. Machna was there to help put an end to the attack. It turns out that Suzumi was the one who made it, but it lost control and grew in size. The monster became larger anytime it ate something. Tokoyo was also there to help, and wanted to know why Alma couldn't defeat it. The robot explained that annihilating it wasn't an issue, but she didn't want to destroy one of her siblings. She wanted to find a safer way of putting an end to the situation without harming the monster. Machna just couldn't wait for the plan to be finalized and went for the attack, but her body was eaten while her head was spat out. Alma noticed that it was making its way to the power station to grow even larger, so stopping it as soon as possible was paramount. Toki was nearby and saw the interaction between the monster and Alma. She did a group call with Suzumi and the rest, saying that she thinks the creature wants to play based on what she had observed. Suzumi had an idea to use the other bodies of Alma, which were being controlled by Machna, to distract the creature, while the normal Alma defeated it. The real body of the monster was a small robot she retrieved. Suzumi had invented it so that Alma would have something to play with, but Alma informed her that it wasn't necessary anymore because she had made so many friends. The shell of the monster robot was still in the middle of the city, but inactive, so it was used to attract tourists. It was getting closer to the summer holidays, and Alma sat at her desk looking through her amazing school report. When class came to an end, Hana and Neon wanted to know what she had planned for the vacation. She had nothing doing since her parents were scheduled to be extremely busy. Neon would have chilled with her, but she had company responsibilities she had to attend to, while Hana was going away to the countryside with her grandmother. Hana also told them that she would be back in time for the summer festival, which would be happening later that month. Neon saw it as the perfect opportunity for all of them to meet up before school resumes. They all went their separate ways to enjoy their vacation with the intention of seeing each other at the festival. During the break, Alma had taken her teenage body out for a spin, where she bumped into a boy. The kid was knocked unconscious, but later woke up on her laps. He quickly excused himself, apologized, and thanked her for looking after him before he left. He noticed that he lost his house keys, so as he searched for it, Alma appeared asking him what the issue was. When she came to know that he was looking for a lost item, she offered to help him find it. She wanted him to retrace his steps. She speculated that he might have dropped it when they clashed, but before they could make their way back there, she saw a cat with a shiny object in its mouth she believed to be the key. Alma decided to chase it but lost sight of it. While the pair of them walked together, the boy wondered if she was from a different country because of her hair. He was even falling for her a little. Alma eventually found it when she climbed up a tree. They chased it down until sunset, where they captured it near a riverbank. It turns out that the cat wasn't in possession of the key. The boy found it funny and laid on the grass exhausted from chasing the animal. She apologized for not being of help to him, but he told her not to worry about it. Alma paused for a moment and leaned in, which the boy thought something magical was about to happen, but she only pulled out the key from his hood. He was glad that she found it, because his late mother gave him the keychain which had his name on it. Losing it would have been devastating for him. They stayed out until it got dark, and Alma said goodbye. The boy told her to wait because he wanted to ask her name. However, he got extremely shy and ran away like I do when talking to girls. Some days had passed, and the boy, whose name is Naoki, was walking in that same location hoping to see Alma again, but he never did. He began to think that perhaps he imagined it all. So as he walked down the stairs, Alma in her normal body walked past him. He recognized her for a moment and called out to her. When he took a closer look, he noticed that the girl in front of his eyes was far younger, so he dismissed it as his imagination. Meanwhile, at home, Alma was completing her vacation homework of drawing a picture book of what they did for the summer. Enji had a look at what she was up to so far and was shocked to see she did the same boring thing every day. He promised to take time off for the remaining 4 days she had left to spend it doing whatever she wanted to do. Alma used that night planning what they should do, so when morning came along, they started the day with exercises. Machna and Tokoyo joined her, but only the two robots had the energy while the three scientists were moving like zombies. Enji wanted to go back to bed, but she alerted him that their day was full of activities. 7 summer activities, to be precise. She held her parents and flew them all the way to Hawaii, which took them just under 2 hours. Neon had a private beach there, which she allowed Alma to enjoy. After playing in the sea for a bit, they made their way back to Japan to complete the rest of their activities. They were planning to attend the festival later that evening, but a typhoon destroyed any hope of it taking place. Alma wasn't about to allow the bad weather to ruin her plans of having a good time, so she went up to the sky and basically blew the typhoon away with a crazy strong beam. The time for the festival had arrived, and she met up with the usual suspects dressed in traditional Japanese clothing. The group enjoyed all the fair had to offer, and ended the day with fireworks they observed from a tree. For the remaining days, Alma spent it with her parents. They went camping, and even visited the South Pole to see penguins. By the end of it all, both Enji and Suzumi were extremely exhausted, although they enjoyed going out for a change. Alma now had interesting things to draw in her illustration diary for what she did in the summer. Summer was already over and fall slid in like a celebrity inside an Instagram model's DM. Suzumi hated this time of the year because of the dryness and cold. Alma offered to heat her up, but when she touched her mother, a static shock almost destroyed the robot. She had to be taken in quickly and repaired to stop her from having any serious damage. Suzumi had a high level of static energy thanks to all the gadgets she used to surround herself with when she was young. Even recently, most of her appliances had been getting broken thanks to her static level. After taking that info into account, Alma thought it best to avoid physical touch with her mother completely until she sorted out the issue. Suzumi was completely heartbroken to find out that Alma saw her as a hazard. Toki visited and was told about the situation. She advised that exercise and a good amount of sleep, as well as eating well, will get rid of her dry skin, which would resolve the static problem. Suzumi listened and did what was advised for 1 whole month to see if anything would change. But as soon as she touched Alma, the static shock was tremendous. Alma, in her error state, detected that the shock was much stronger than before due to an accumulation of stress. Alma's solution was for Enji to hold Suzumi, which would reduce her stress since they like each other. Suzumi was willing to try anything which would allow her to hold her daughter again, and Enji didn't mind helping. The two of them were too shy to embrace one another, so the vacuum cleaner tripped up Suzumi, which created a situation allowing them to hold each other. Alma told them to hold that position until morning because Suzumi's oxytocin level was increasing. By the next day, the mother was able to hold her daughter with no issues at all. They reported the good news to Toki, who had a hint as to what happened when she saw that her brother and Suzumi became shy. Some time went by, and Alma had gone viral on the internet when someone recorded her dancing with some construction robots. Neon saw this as a chance for her, Alma, and Machna to begin a streaming career. They came up with a name, and even created a channel they called Amane. The girls discussed their ideas with Alma's parents, who were very supportive. The group began their streaming and started to gain traction. They got a few hate comments who thought that they were using CGI to make themselves fly. They continued to improve, and were even good at the overreacting and exaggeration that streamers do. They soon reached 50,000 subscribers, and through refining their content and hard work, they arrived at that 100,000 subscribers. They even got a bootleg silver play button. Neon suggested that they should throw a live concert for their fans to celebrate this amazing achievement. The girls began constructing their stage, and not before long, everything was ready. The day arrived, and a lot of people turned up to see the influencers. The girls performed a song they wrote themselves to the cheering crowd, who loved every moment of it. They thanked all their fans for coming out to support them after the performance. Alma announced that their stream was ranking #1, so Machna was extremely excited to the point where she removed her head from her body, which got their channel completely banned. Alma went back to normal daily things with her parents, and while they got ready for a family outing, a bunch of scientists barged into their lab. Enji was furious to see people of the scientific institution at his front door and wondered what they wanted. They were there to show their respect to Suzumi and Enji for their groundbreaking invention of an AI robot that was almost indistinguishable from a real human. They listed all the amazing things Alma had achieved so far and showed deep regret for dismissing their work as a pipe dream. The institution were now offering them a position to join their state-of-the-art research establishment in the USA. They were even willing to make them directors with a crazy paycheck. Enji and Suzumi had been waiting for the day these scumbags would come begging on their knees for the duo to return. The fake married couple had finally got their revenge, but were furious and about to throw them out. But Alma told them that going to America wasn't such a bad idea. She reminded them that they had won the war because the institution has now acknowledged their work, which was always a dream of theirs. They took her advice on board, so the family traveled to the US where Alma showcased her amazing abilities to the research team there. They were completely blown away by the technology on display, which made Enji feel smug. In this moment in time, The family did not regret their move at all, especially considering the luxury they were being exposed to. These mofos even had access to a helicopter. Life was starting to look different for the robot, since she was now attending her old school remotely. After school, Alma wanted to play with her parents, but they were both extremely busy pulling all-nighters, so they promised to spend time with her when things eased up a little. The pair were able to work hard enough to help produce a commercial assistant robot that was able to take care of every daily need like a real human being. Their work still wasn't done as they kept breaking their promise to Alma to spend time with her. They felt bad for it, but the girl told them not to worry. However, deep inside, she was feeling hurt and lonely, especially considering that it was her birthday. She had plans to celebrate with her parents, but they were busy with work. She went up to space to comfort herself when Suzumi received a distress notification from the vacuum that Alma was nowhere to be found. Suzumi called Enji to inform him that she noticed that Alma didn't seem like herself the last time they spoke on the phone with her. She speculated that the girl was feeling lonely, but refused to tell them. Enji wondered if this was even possible for a robot, but when he remembered that Alma's AI system was on a different level, he considered that possibility. However, he also looked at how they were almost done with the consumer robot assistant, which could change the world and finally have them being recognized as the genius they are, which was always their childhood dream. Suzumi began to cry and shouted at him for his selfish dream. She reminded him that they swore to be good parents to Alma. Her words slapped sense into his brain, so they began the search for their daughter. They first contacted Neon to track her using the satellites she had. Machna was also called in to search from space. Meanwhile, Alma was making her way back to their old home in Japan because she missed how life used to be. But before she could return to America, Enji and Suzumi came crashing down in one of Neon's robots. It was Toki who gave a clue as to where Alma might be. They informed their daughter that they quit the job, but Alma couldn't understand the reasoning behind why they did so. They told her that even though they appreciated her supporting them to achieve their life goals, they couldn't sacrifice her happiness for it. They made Alma feel comfortable enough to ask them to move back to Japan and live together, which they agreed to with no hesitation. The mother and father apologized to her before giving her a warm embrace. Now that the two of them were out of a job, Enji created a company in anticipation. Suzumi also did the same thing, so that at least they can still pursue their dreams while having time for Alma. Enji admitted that if Suzumi hadn't spoken to him so sternly, he wouldn't have realized that he needs her and Alma. It looked like he was about to confess his feelings for her, but he instead asked her to merge her company with his. Alma's school friends came to their location and expressed their delight in her coming back. Everything was back to how it used to be, which made Alma extremely happy.